Agent Service Police, how can I help? It appears my daughter's gone missing. No one has seen her, no? No. We phoned around the family, all her friends have contacted us and asking where she is, and none of them know. What's her name? Rebecca Watts.
At around 4 p.m. on Thursday, February 20th, 2015, police in Bristol, England, received a call from a man by the name of Darren Galsworthy, who called to report that his 16-year-old daughter, Rebecca Watts, had been missing since the day before. Police arrived shortly after and started gathering information to fill out a report. In most of these cases, missing teenagers usually turn out to be safe. But there was something about this particular case that led police to believe that something may have happened to Rebecca. Her laptop, tablet, and her phone were all missing, but it didn't look like she'd taken any money, makeup, or spare clothes with her. And she didn't tell anyone that she was leaving, nor did she respond to any calls or texts, which was not at all like her. Rebecca was also very active on her social media, constantly posting and interacting with friends and family, but that suddenly came to a halt. At first, her parents figured that she was probably with someone she knew, but when a group of her friends showed up at the house to check up on her, Rebecca's parents started to worry, and that's when they decided to call the police. Rebecca, or Becky as her friends and family called her, lived with her father Darren and her stepmother Angie May in Crown Hill, a quiet residential neighborhood in the St. George district of Bristol, England. Becky was described as kind and very caring toward her friends and family. At school, she was usually kind of quiet and shy, but she had a close-knit circle of friends who she was comfortable being herself around. Becky's parents divorced when she was very young, and by the time she was 2, her father had met Angie. They married in 2013 with Angie's son Nathan serving as best man and Becky as a bridesmaid, along with Nathan's girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. Becky's stepmother Angie tells police that Becky had spent the previous night with her friends and returned home early the next day. Angie says that she saw Becky that morning and chatted with her until around 11:15 a.m. when Angie had to leave for a hospital appointment. By Sunday, there was still no sign of Becky, and police decided to release her information to the public, asking local residents to be on the lookout for her. Then, on the following day, Becky's parents held a press conference and pleaded for Becky to come home.
Bex, if you're watching this, please come home. We love you so much, and whatever you think, we can sort anything out. Doesn't matter. Just come home. And if any of her friends are hiding her, you're not doing her any favors. Just tell the police. Just ring number 101 and just bring her home safe. Sorry, I can't.
By this point, Becky's parents had a feeling that something bad may have happened to Becky, but were desperately hoping that she was staying somewhere and would eventually show up. Becky's parents took to social media. An online campaign using the hashtag #FindBecky was launched and reached more than 2 million people worldwide. Police launched a search effort in St. George and in neighboring areas, covering parks, open fields, and going door to door, and local news stations descended on Bristol to cover it. Meanwhile, detectives got to work and started questioning the people closest to Becky to gather information and build a timeline of events. They needed to find out if anything out of the ordinary had happened recently.
Do you know whether she uses WhatsApp?
Yeah.
She does. So you and her would normally be through text, Facebook, Messenger. Shauna heard the door go, so she was assuming it was Becky going out.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it was Becky going out.
Okay. No one saw her go, but
No.
just heard the door go.
Yeah.
And the assumption that Becky had left.
Yes.
Okay.
As detectives interview Becky's friends and family, they make an interesting discovery. Police were initially under the impression that Becky's stepmother was the last person to hear from her, but then they interviewed Becky's stepbrother, 28-year-old Nathan Matthews. Nathan reveals that he and his girlfriend, 21-year-old Shauna Hoare, were actually at Becky's the day she went missing, and were still inside the house after his mother had left for her appointment. They say that they didn't see Becky, but assumed that she left the house when they heard the front door shut.
I'd like you to take yourself back to that day if you could. You could just talk us through what happened in as much detail as you can remember.
Okay. Me and Nathan, we rang Angie
Yeah.
to see if she was going to be in that day. Angie asked me if Becky had gone out, And I said, yeah, I heard the door go. She must have gone out earlier. When you heard that, in your thought, were you thinking that's the front door that's slammed?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And who did you think that was?
Well, Becky.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A few things immediately stand out to detectives as they interview Nathan and his girlfriend. The first red flag was how difficult it was to reach them and get them to come in for questioning, almost as if they were avoiding the police. Another red flag was Shauna's behavior during the interview. The officer who sat with Shauna reported that her demeanor was odd. She was giggly and lighthearted during the interview, which was in stark contrast to everyone else, who were, for the most part, seriously worried about Becky's safety. Nathan's demeanor also seemed odd. He came off as relaxed and unconcerned, and even joked and laughed a few times. After interviewing them both, detectives cross-checked their accounts, and their stories lined up perfectly, almost too perfectly. Even the best of witnesses often have inconsistencies in their stories that need to be clarified, but not these two. Detectives had a hunch that they might be in collusion and got their stories straight before they came in, but that wasn't enough to make any arrests. Police decided to take a closer look at Becky's house and sent in a forensics team. At first, everything appeared to be normal, and there were no signs of a struggle. But on their way out, investigators spotted something. On the doorframe in Becky's room, they found what looked like a bloody fingerprint. It's been 9 days since Becky was last seen, and police still have no idea where she is. As the forensics lab processes the bloody fingerprint they discovered, police bring Becky's stepbrother, Nathan, and his girlfriend back in for further questioning. They press Shauna for information about how Nathan is dealing with his stepsister's disappearance.
Has Nathan had any sort of concerns about speaking to us?
Not that you told me now.
No.
If he does, I wouldn't know then.
Yeah. How is he finding it?
He's found it quite hard, actually.
Yeah.
Or again, knowing how hard it'd be for his mum at the moment. Because Becky was almost like a daughter to her.
Yeah.
And it has been very stressful for Angie.
When it's Nathan's turn to speak, he gives a different picture of the family dynamics.
So how would you describe your relationship with Becky?
Didn't particularly talk to her, but obviously I didn't particularly like her. And obviously what annoys me is the way she speaks to like my mum sometimes. She'd be kind of like rude or whatever. I'm trying to think of an actual specific time.
The accounts that Nathan and his girlfriend give to police aren't lining up anymore, but it still wasn't enough to make an arrest. But not too long after the interviews, police had a major break in the case. Forensics determined that the bloody fingerprint was in fact Nathan's, and the blood belonged to Becky.
Hey, buddy. Come on in. Come back. The reason I've come here is to make an arrest of yourself, okay? And what I'm going to do is explain everything here and now, okay?
Put your hands like that for me, alright?
With both Nathan and his girlfriend in custody, police are hoping that Becky is still alive, but they only have 24 hours to interview them before they must either press charges or release them. Nathan and Shauna were placed in separate rooms and were asked to recall their stories once again, but this time, every little detail was being interrogated.
Is there anything going on in that house that made you worried?
No.
Or concerned?
No, everything seemed normal. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing, it all seemed kind of the same as it would any other day. And I was in the kitchen when I heard the door slam. And I carried on. And as I went back in the living room, he just kind of sat on the sofa. I think he was playing on his tablet.
Have you got any concerns or suspicions that Nathan or any other member of your family or extended family might be responsible for her disappearance?
No. No.
Why are you so sure?
Because none of them would do anything like that.
Is there anything that happened that could be significant in the disappearance of Rebecca? You're absolutely sure? I know you've got something to tell us. I can see it in your face.
I was just making sure there was nothing, like a weird, significant thing that I hadn't thought of. I don't know anything.
It's becoming obvious to detectives that Shauna knows something that she doesn't want to tell them. In another room, Nathan is confronted directly.
You were at the address at the time that Rebecca, or Becky, I think most people know
Becky,
her as, yeah, Becky.
Or Bex.
Yeah, okay. Do you know her as Becky or Bex?
Usually call her Bex.
What we're most interested in is finding Becky. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what the police want to do.
Yeah.
So, what can you tonight tell us about Becky's disappearance?
As in, like, what do you want to know?
We want to
Right.
find her. Where is she?
I don't know where she is.
Is she safe?
Well, I don't know where she is, so I'm meant to know.
Do you know if she's alive?
Well, look, no.
Have you hurt her?
No, I haven't hurt her.
As detectives continue their interrogations, a forensics team is sent to Nathan and Shauna's apartment. Before they even enter, the search team quickly realize that the apartment is a total mess. The front door wouldn't open all the way because of the 2 refrigerators placed right behind it. As they make their way inside, they can see junk everywhere. There were piles and piles of old toys, stacks of plastic containers with more junk inside, and a washing machine sitting right in the middle of the hallway. In the kitchen and the dining room were more piles of junk and trash, so much of it that the search team had to basically dig their way around and had to feel around the walls to see where the next room was. After making their way upstairs, they walked into the bathroom and something immediately stood out to them. It wasn't the large industrial microwave sitting on top of the bathroom sink, but the toilet and the bathtub right across from it. They didn't match the condition the rest of the house was in. They were so clean that you could see reflections on the surfaces, almost as if someone had just recently scrubbed them down. The rest of the apartment was so messy and filled with so much junk that the search needed to be extended, and it wouldn't be until 2 days later that police would discover something sinister. Police were able to get a judge's permission to hold Nathan and Shauna for an extended period of time until a search of their house could be completed. In the meantime, detectives continue their interrogations. They don't immediately reveal what evidence they found so far. Instead, they ask very specific questions to see if their answers line up with what they found.
Did you go upstairs in the house at that time, before your mum came home on that Thursday?
I'd say no. No. At most, if the door was shut.
Given that his bloody fingerprints were discovered on Becky's door, it's clear that Nathan isn't telling the truth. Back at his apartment, the search team makes another significant discovery. Inside of a cramped storage compartment, police find a receipt dated the same day that Becky was reported missing. The receipt was from a local hardware store and showed that a purchase was made which included goggles, a face mask, work gloves, and a circular saw. The only conclusion police could draw from this was that Nathan likely murdered his stepsister, dismembered her body in his bathtub, and then disposed of it before scrubbing the bathroom clean. CCTV footage from the store confirmed that it was in fact him who made the purchase. The investigation just took a dark turn. Nathan and Shauna were both charged with murder. Police must now figure out where Becky's body is and why she was killed. Nathan was informed that his apartment was searched and that incriminating evidence was found, indicating that he murdered Becky. He continued denying that he killed her. But on the 11th day of Becky's disappearance, Nathan gave a statement to police and had his ears covered as it was read out loud by his lawyer. The statement read, "I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept I'm responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On the 19th of February 2015, I attended Crown Hill, St. George, Bristol with my girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. In my car, I had a large bag, a stun device, handcuffs, tape, and mask. I developed an idea to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her. I wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. I believed that she was selfish and her behavior towards my mother was a risk to her health. A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said she wanted a cigarette and went into the garden. I went to the boot of my car, took out a bag that contained the items, then went upstairs to the landing before knocking on Rebecca's door. She replied, "What?" or "Hello," and I said, "Can I see you a minute?" I cannot be sure which order things happened, but I used the items I had to subdue Rebecca. During the short struggle, my mask slipped and Rebecca was able to see my face. This caused me to panic and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag. Nathan went on to detail how he dismembered Becky's body in his bathtub with the circular saw he'd just bought, then placed her body parts in bags and hid them in his shed just a few hundred yards from his home. 12 days after Becky went missing, her body was recovered. Becky's family's worst fears turned out to be true. Detectives, however, were not buying Nathan's story and wanted to know the extent to which his girlfriend Shauna was involved.
Yesterday, Nathan, you very kindly gave us a fairly lengthy prepared statement through your solicitor, and we've had time to read that. We have to investigate this whole offence, and of course, whilst you're being interviewed, Shauna is also
I know Shauna's been interviewed. I
Yeah.
want to talk about Shauna.
So you don't want to? Okay. Has Becky stood up, Nathan, whilst you were strangling her?
No comment.
To what degree was she incapacitated then?
No comment.
Was she conscious at the time that you strangled her?
No comment.
Nathan says that Shauna had nothing to do with the murder and refuses to say anything else. But given that they lived together and have been caught lying multiple times, detectives know she was involved somehow.
He says that he killed Becky whilst he was at the address on this date. Okay? What's your knowledge of him killing Becky?
Found out yesterday morning.
You found out yesterday morning?
Prior to that, I had no idea that he had any involvement in anything at all.
And how do we know you weren't involved in the killing of Becky?
Because there would be no proof. I haven't touched anything or been anywhere near her alive or dead.
Shauna continues to deny having any involvement. She was charged with perverting the course of justice and was held in custody while police searched for evidence tying her to the murder. Over the course of the next 2 months, police conducted a more thorough search of Nathan and Shauna's apartment, as well as Becky's house. They also scoured the data on all their phones and computers, which eventually led to the discovery of the sick, perverted motive behind 16-year-old Becky's murder.
So the first message is 9th of 12th, 2014, timed at 12:48, and it says to Shauna, and it says, "Fuck you, bring me back, 2 pretty schoolgirls then. D1, I think that says. Tell me about that text message."
No comment.
Deleted text messages between Nathan and Shauna revealed that they shared fantasies about abducting and abusing teenage girls.
Next message is 9th December 2014 at 18:14. It says from Shauna. "Just went to Cost Cutters and saw a very, in big caps, petite girl. Almost knocked her out to bring her home. LOL. And there's crosses and zeros. Shauna, what can you tell me about that?
No comment.
Am I right in thinking that this girl was similar to Becca's age?
No comment.
Shauna declined to comment on these texts, but law enforcement would eventually find evidence that she couldn't ignore. Shauna's DNA was found on a face mask that Nathan had purchased before dismembering the body, and on one of the bags containing Becky's remains. Police now have forensic evidence tying Shauna directly to the murder of Becky Watts.
Go on, you fucking scum! Go on, you fucking scum!
Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare both stood trial for murder and perverting the course of justice. Shauna was found guilty of manslaughter and was sentenced to 17 years in prison. In 2023, about halfway through her sentence, she was released on license, which is similar to being paroled. Nathan was found guilty of murder and was handed a sentence of life in prison with a minimum of 33 years. Nathan Matthews is currently serving his time in Long Lartin Prison in Worcestershire, England, and won't be released before 2048 at the age of 54.